Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, "Are you aware this is first class?" Perhaps, but I'm not the one on the wrong train. Backstory and setup. Several years ago I worked as an IT contractor for a company who supplies IT support services all over the world. I was based out of the Northeast UK office and had been given temporary accommodation by the company for 6 months in Edinburgh whilst working on a major IT infrastructure upgrade program for a client in the petrochemical industry. As part of this upgrade work, I would regularly take the train from Edinburgh to London on a daily basis to complete work at the client's various sites throughout the UK. I have several disabilities which can make travelling for me a bit of a headache. As such, when travelling on trains I travel first class. This actually worked out for my employer as I receive a discount which also applies to a person who travels with me. So this was favourably received by the executives who occasionally travelled to the head office in London, as it could save them a small fortune over multiple trips. Because of my medical conditions, I wear loose-fitting clothing at the waistline to not cause discomfort on my stomach area, which can exacerbate my condition when traveling, a form of inflammatory bowel disease. Whilst my employer had a strict work attire policy, that policy did not apply outside of a client's business hours, when traveling alone or when attending a client on an emergency call-out. So I used that to my advantage and changed clothes for traveling home. This happened several years ago, so I don't recall the exact times of the trains. However, after completing the day's tasks at the client's London office, I returned to London King's Cross in time to catch a train around 6 p.m. to Edinburgh. This is a peak time intercity service with limited stops on the near 400-mile journey to Edinburgh. As I liked to arrive at the station in plenty of time, I usually waited in the first-class lounge. At approximately 17:40, a member of staff approached me and told me the train to Edinburgh was ready for boarding if I wanted to make my way over. I thanked them and went over to the train. I boarded and took my usual seat just behind the restaurant area of the train. One of the first-class hosts saw me board and brought me a lemonade and some crisps and asked if I intended to dine in the restaurant after work as normal. I agreed and put in my usual order. The incident. Shortly before departure, some of the train's regulars started appearing, and I'm guessing it's just a British thing, but a lot of the train's regular passengers took the same seats each day every day. I was no different. However, today a gentleman in a suit boarded and after walking up and down the carriage 2 or 3 times decided he was going to join me at the table of 4 seats I was sat at. I have no problems sharing my table with anyone, but this gentleman was something else. We'll call him Alan. Alan placed his briefcase on the seat next to him and started spreading his paperwork all over the table, including the part of the table directly in front of me, and as he did so gave me a very dirty look. Feeling my personal space was violated, I fought back, and it became an appropriate time to get my laptop out and start playing Minesweeper. I reached for my backpack, took out my laptop, then picked up the part of Alan's paperwork directly in front of me and placed it on top of some of his other paperwork to my left. I then placed my laptop on the table and started booting it up. Alan looks at me and asks, "Alan, what are you doing?" Me, booting my computer up to play Minesweeper. I'm bored. A lady sat adjacent to me on the opposite side of the aisle who saw this unfold started trying not to laugh. Alan then receives a phone call from what I can only guess is his colleague, and they start discussing a company's financial affairs, not my employer or my client. From the conversation, it seems Alan is in the finance department and is used to dealing with a lot of money. During this phone call he keeps giving me dirty looks, and after a few moments in the most patronizing voice says the following: "Alan, excuse me Nigel, I think I'm going to have to phone you back. Someone's bothering me." Alan then ends his call and starts giving me his full attention. I deliberately avoid looking anywhere near him at this point and continue playing Minesweeper. Alan, young man, are you aware this is first class? Me, well, it says first class on the headrest there, says it on the windows, says it on this table cover, so yes, I would say that's a good indicator we're in first class. What's your point? Alan, so doesn't that tell you anything? Me, tells me we're in first class. Alan, no. It tells you shouldn't be here. I'd like you to move to the correct part of the train or I'll go and have a word with the conductor. Me, go and speak to the conductor then. See if I care, because I won't and don't. Alan, you're testing my patience, boy. You know what we'll see when the conductor comes, and maybe I'll get the police involved too for the way you're behaving. Me, good luck with that. At this point I notice Alan's ticket on the table. He holds a first-class single from Canterbury to Stevenage. Stevenage is approximately 30 miles by distance, 20 minutes away from London King's Cross on an intercity train. Alan and I are on a train that is First Call York, which is approximately 190 miles away, 2 hours away from London King's Cross. It's clear that either I or Alan is on the wrong train. After a quick look online I discover it is Alan who is on the wrong train. The revenge. I was about to point out Alan's mistake and let him know he was on the wrong train. But then I thought, you've been so rude and judgmental that maybe you need to be taught that just because I'm a 20-something scruffy-looking kid doesn't mean I can't and shouldn't be here. I am going to tell you you're on the wrong train, but I'm only going to do that once the doors close and the train starts moving. So I did exactly that. At just after 1800 I hear a whistle being blown outside and the train shortly lurches into motion. After moving through Gasworks Tunnel I then put my laptop away and drop this bombshell. Me, oh, you're going to Stevenage, are you? Alan, that's got nothing to do with you. Why are you looking at my ticket? Me, it's in plain view on the table and you're right, it's nothing to do with me, but you probably want to know you're on the wrong train. This one doesn't call Stevenage. It's First Call York. Bad luck. Alan's face turns redder than a tomato. Alan, no, you're wrong, there must be a mistake. What could you know? You shouldn't be in here anyway, and if you shouldn't be here then you obviously know nothing. Me, maybe the mistake is you're the one who's made a mistake and is on the wrong train. But let's see what the conductor says, shall we? Who knows, I might get thrown off at Stevenage too. The lady laughing from earlier. At this point she also interjects. Lady, I'm not going to get involved as I didn't see what started this, but he catches this train every day and what he doesn't know about trains is not worth knowing, so be careful. Me, thank you Alan, none speaking to you, so stay out of it. If I wanted an opinion I'd have asked for it. Lady, wow, okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. After what felt like eternity but was probably only 10 minutes or so the conductor appears and greets me by first name. We'll call the conductor Kelly. Alan's body language immediately shifts on watching this unfold. I then reach for my ticket but Kelly declines, saying, "You're fine, I know you've got one, but I still get it out anyway." Me, it does say first class on it though, right? Kelly checks the ticket and replies, "Yes, definitely does, looks all good to me, don't worry." Did you want me to get you a seat in the restaurant or has the crew spoken to you already? Me, already spoken to me, thanks though. Alan starts to look extremely nervous having seen this exchange and he presents his ticket to Kelly. Kelly, I'm sorry sir, you're on the wrong train, and this train doesn't call Stevenage. You'll need to go to York and change. I'm also going to have to charge you for a ticket from London to York. I can sell you a ticket so you can get back to Stevenage this evening if you wish as well. Alan protests this and an argument breaks out. Ultimately Kelly prevails and makes it clear in no uncertain terms that the train doors clearly displayed the train's calling list, as did the station platform screens. Further adding that as he's on the wrong train and he must have known he was on the wrong train given all the information available, he was liable to pay the fare. For a first-class anytime return, which is what Alan bought so he could get back to Stevenage, he paid over £400 for his new tickets. As Kelly prints out the ticket and gives it to Alan, I deliver the final punchline. Me, and now you're aware this is first class. At this point a few passengers nearby who had witnessed the whole interaction erupt into laughter. Alan throws everything back into his briefcase in temper, face turning purple, and I think I could almost see the steam coming from his ears. He then storms down to the back of the train. Kelly later approaches me and asks what that was all about, and I recant the story. A few passengers also confirmed I wasn't at fault, and Kelly goes on to explain she saw him be very rude to a staff member on the platform, which is why she charged him for the full fare. Next one is titled, "Who were you on the phone with?" What? This happened so many moons ago, around 12,410 or about 34 years. I mean, it predates cell phones, internet, yeah, back in those days. Everyone had a phone hooked to a wall. You weren't walking around with a device or phone permanently pressed to your ear or hip pocket. You were chained like a prisoner to the wall. My wife and I lived in an upstairs apartment of a house. We had 2 small children at the time, very young still. I was in the military at the time. The basement apartment always seemed to attract the strangest people, you know, the type you go out of your way to avoid. I mean, seriously avoid. Don't want people to know you know them, avoid. Yeah, you know the type. This really freaky couple decided to move out, and the girlfriend decided to just hand the lease over to her sister and boyfriend. We didn't know it at the time, but her sister was toxic. I mean, stick your hand in a full septic tank, eat what you fish out, toxic. Now I worked days and they worked alternating nights at some drug rehab halfway house or something. So, every night one of them would be working. On the first night they moved in, my wife and I put the kids in bed and shortly after, went to bed ourselves. I had to be up around 5 a.m. to get to the base, early morning exercise stuff, the go you chicken fat go stuff for all you older boomers out there, then work. All of a sudden around 11 p.m. the phone in their apartment starts to ring, loud, like warehouse phone loud. This thing woke both of us up and the kids. So now we are all wide awake. The phone rang for 30 minutes before the boyfriend picked it up. The rest of the night we could hear him talking very loudly into the phone. He was saying things that I didn't want to know, personal things that nobody wants to know. Yuck. The next night we get the kids in bed, we go to bed. We are exhausted from the lack of sleep the night before. At 11 p.m. the downstairs phone rings and it rang for another 30 minutes before she picked it up. For the rest of the night, we heard her on the phone. These people had one volume 11, shout out to Spinal Tap fans. I think these 2 people were their start of the 1 to 900 phones calls. Again, yuck. All night every night, for about 2 weeks. There were a few nights that the phone would ring all night long and never get picked up. We were all really tired, no sleep, cranky kids. Neighbors that were made of the same stuff I find trailed on toilet paper before flushing. I started thinking, I have to find a way to stop this insanity. Now I have a mechanical background. I have worked in construction, wiring, building repair, auto and truck repair. There had to be something I could do. Saturday rolls around and I am in the backyard mowing the grass, part of my lease agreement. I notice 2 phone connection boxes on the side of the house. The gears in my brain start to formulate my revenge. After I mow the lawn, I open my toolbox and find a wire with 2 alligator clips. I trace the connection going to my phone first, to experiment. I jump 2 wires together and check my phone. Dead, no tone. Ha, got you now, you bastards. Just before we went to bed, I went outside and jumped the wires to their phone. Oh, it was peaceful. All night we slept, the kids slept. I dreamt of sugar plums, unicorns and fairies, oh, sweet bliss. The next morning, we woke up rested, I removed the wire and we sat down to eat breakfast and the girlfriend comes home and tromps down into their apartment. I mean, the entire house shook, she had a purpose. Suddenly all hell broke loose. You could hear the door get kicked, she stomped her way through their apartment. I think she was foaming at the mouth, like a rabid skunk. The conversation went something like this: girlfriend will be GF for ghastly freak, for all you Pokemon fans, boyfriend will be PS for poor soul. I won't capitalize, just remember volume 11. GF, where is she? What the duck were you doing all night? PS, what? Just getting out of bed. You could tell by the area his voice echoed through the floorboards. GF, who the hell were you talking to all night? I'll kill her. PS, what? GF, don't you want me? I tried to call all night and the phone was busy. All night the phone was busy. Who the duck were you on the phone with? All night long. PS, nobody, babe. GF, throwing the first of many objects, you could hear it crash against the wall. Don't you dare babe me, you a hole. I want to know who else you are ducking. Who were you on the phone with? This went on for a couple of hours, crap was getting thrown. Yelling, screaming, words were getting used that would make a pig blush. I was desperately trying not to die laughing and wishing I had some popcorn. It was better than the old radio shows, excitement, thrills, drama, everything. I think their voices are imprinted into the ceiling of that apartment. The boyfriend was finally able to find a way to get out and drive away, still in his underwear. Peace resumed for the rest of the day. I jumped their phone every night from then on. I slept well, still do. After a few months they moved out, and you guessed it, another creepy family moved in. Sometimes I feel a little sorry for the poor boyfriend and what I did, but only for a nanosecond, and then I roll over laughing. Yay, it was worth it. I did talk to him once before they moved out, and he said she threw one of her high heels so hard it stuck in the wall right next to his head. I never did tell him about the wire. So, if you are reading this, no, I am not sorry, and thanks for the good laugh that has lasted for years. Next one is titled, How I Made Karen Feel Horrible About Herself. So this was back about a year ago when I worked in the restaurant business. I was a hostess, and often we'd get people who were mad about call ahead seating. It is not a reservation. It's a way for you to be more ahead on a waiting list if you called in advance. So I'd often get people who were angry about having to wait even though they made a reservation. Well, I had a Karen once come in with, I'm assuming, her husband. Now she had a bit longer hair than the normal haircut, but was extremely overweight and just an overall rude person. At this restaurant we have 2-person booths and 4-person booths. I'd often try to accommodate to people a bit larger by sitting them in a 4-person booth. Well, one night, we're extremely busy, 2-page waiting list. Karen comes in about 30 minutes after her call ahead was listed, still she's now around the middle part of the list. I sit a few tables before her when she comes up to me complaining, we have a reservation. Why is it taking so long? This is ridiculous. I explain to her that it's a call ahead and she's more ahead on the list than people who came in before her. She goes back and sits down, and about 15 minutes later she comes up again. She's angrier, and I explain it'll only be about 15 more minutes. She's getting really angry, saying, I told you. We should have went to other restaurant nearby. At this point I'm tired, I've worked 10 hours, and honestly I felt like if I'm gonna be at this job I should have at least one story to take with me when I leave. So, I see a 2-person booth has opened up. I explain, ma'am, we have a 2-person booth that just opened up, I'd be happy to sit you there if that's okay. She just smiles that smug grin, so I feel a little better about doing this. I take her to an open part of the restaurant, in view of most people there, and just sit back to watch before placing their menus down. She frowns a little bit, but I guess she wanted to prove something. She gets about halfway in the booth before her stomach rams up against the table, bolted to the floor. She grunts and groans and finally gets in with about 1/3 of her leg hanging out and her stomach a bit on the table. I see a few people around watching in, I'm assuming, amusement or horror. Her husband then asks if they can get another table. Karen says nothing. I tell her husband sure, and I'm sorry this one didn't work. To be fair, he was nice the whole time and just had his head down while waiting. Poor guy. So I bring them back to the lounge to wait, and she doesn't say a word until I finally call her for a 4-person booth. This is probably one of the meanest things I've done in life, but hey, it's hard to get some petty revenge just being the hostess. Next one is titled, Spicy Sausage. This happened when I was back in school, but still feels very satisfying when I think about it. Of course most schools have their share of bullies, but this boy was a real idiot and didn't mind picking on girls, me included. It was around the beginning of the school year and I had a nice new fluffy pencil case that I just loved. Unfortunately for me, the bully seemed to take a liking to it too and started to mess with me, holding it above his head, throwing it to one of his equally annoying friends, then shoving it down his pants full on in his underwear and daring me to come get it. He could obviously tell this grossed me out. So of course this just made him do it more. In fact, every opportunity he had that day he would grab it and shove it right back down there. By the end of the day my pencil case had completely lost its appeal and I was embarrassed and angry, so I decided to sacrifice it in the pettiest way possible. That night I completely covered it in the hottest chili powder we had, put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in my school bag. The next day I carefully took it out of the Ziploc, placed it on my desk and deliberately turned my back on it. Literally within seconds bully boy grabbed it and yep, straight down the pants. I honestly think I saw the moment his soul left his body and he realized immediately what was happening. Off screaming to the bathroom he went. I'm actually surprised I didn't get into trouble for it. I guess he was too embarrassed to go to the nurse or a teacher, but he did leave me alone after that. Next one is titled, All This Fighting Over Something So Small. I was watching Lord of the Rings last night and remembered this. My family has been fighting like vultures over who has my grandmother's ring for the past 6 months. She died last year and all her children, age 60 plus, think one of them took it while she was sick. One aunt says it was promised to her daughter, but there is no mention in the will and she thinks my uncle took it because he was around my grandmother the most. I'm treated like the black sheep of the family where I don't really get invited to wedding or family events in general. I try to put my best foot forward but usually end up feeling I'm being taken advantage of. Last time I got invited to be involved, it was because I had money. I also inherited my grandmother's house and they left it trashed, ransacked after her funeral, including locking her senior cat in a bedroom with no food or water. I luckily ran by the next day, so he's still alive. When I furiously asked who locked up the cat and why, the answer I got was basically, "Oh, I don't know." That's bad. So if you find that ring, can you mail it to me? What none of them know is my grandmother gave me the ring before she started getting sick and didn't tell anyone because she thought it would start a fight. Edit, a few more details. All of the family live really far away and they're pretty old. I don't think they could break in if they tried. And I keep the ring in a safe, very hidden location. Last one is titled, Parking with No Distance Next to My Driveway. Enjoy opening your car. It is always the same neighbors that get a lot of guests. They play really loud music really late and park inconsiderately if it saves them 10 steps of walking. So now one of their guests is right at my driveway, on the day my daughter is moving out and we're driving stuff back and forth. So yes, we went and knocked on their door. They never open. The door has a cloudy glass insert and I could see them right there at the dining table again not answering the door. I have had it and smeared honey on the driver's door handle. You can't even see it in the dark. Didn't want to accidentally kill someone with peanut butter, but brown smeary hands would have been glorious. Zero guilt. The woman once kept on leaving messages on my daughter's car she should stop parking on her curb. When she didn't, she'd do stuff like park on one side and put the trash cans on the other, park on our curb, etc. Thanks for listening.